examples, I think, of these tools, or taking a little second for these LLMs and large language models and other tools to be actually put into kind of like a useful context. So we all know they can accomplish some pretty cool things and get you some cool responses back from your prompts, but tying them into like full systems kind of take a second. And we'll get to the system that we've been building for a while in the Knowledge Hub later today. But cool that Wix is starting to roll it out, because I can definitely see this being helpful for people. Being able to leverage some of the, I guess, median expertise of a space. If you don't have a ton of experience in it, can definitely add to some speed. Shopify also released the tool that can help people, if you're starting an online business, being able to ask it questions, have it access the data and statistics around how people are using or what people are buying from you, and how you could potentially lean into that further. So pretty interesting to see how these big companies are starting to roll out these tools, and if people are going to use them at all. And there's also new models coming out, and a lot of the focus is kind of on data. Really interesting to see Claude 2 come out. Anthropic is a competitor to OpenAI that was founded by some of their ex-members. And what's cool about Claude is that it has 100K context length. So what that means is while GPT-4 can only take in 8,000 tokens or 32,000 characters, Anthropic can take in 100,000 or 400,000 characters. So that means you can put in pretty much whole sections of books or very long documents and ask questions across all of them. You can see that it does pretty well on the GRE, the medical exam, and the multi-state bar exam. And in a change from their kind of past work, this one's actually open. So you can go ahead and test it right now with its longer context length. And some people are liking the interactions a bit better. I think it's worthwhile to just try a few different of these models to see which one fits with you best. There's also, like, people have been talking about Pi, the friendly language model. Some people are pretty annoyed by it, but they're kind of like taking a different approach, which is it really kind of let's see if we can get a better article here. It really seems to focus more on the nuance in its conversation. It qualifies a lot of its statements and has interesting responses. All to say that worthwhile trying out some of the different ones to see if there's one that works for your use case the best. A couple last things on data. Two really interesting partnerships that came down the pipeline this past couple weeks. One is OpenAI agreeing with the Associated Press so that they can get all of their news content and technology in order to have licensed information for their models to train on, as well as we're starting to see that people are showing that high quality data leads to a lot better results, as you might imagine. There's a paper called Textbooks Are All You Need, where they go to show that it's a significantly smaller model trained on just textbooks, textbook quality data, actually performs pretty much as well as GPT-3, GPT 3.5, which is ChatGPT, which it goes to show that if you don't necessarily need as much data and as big of models to get quality results if you can focus on the quality data for your specific domain. So OpenAI is definitely starting to lean a little bit more into that. They got a big partnership with Shutterstock last week, and they also closed one with, I just mentioned, the Associated Press. So pretty interesting to see them ink these partnerships. They're also getting, they also have a case in the SEC, OpenAI, or not SEC, I don't know, some government organization here. There's a class action lawsuit about data, but also there's also the FTC. The FTC is investigating OpenAI over kind of like data leaks. And supposed inaccuracy. This is actually a really interesting case because I'm not, a lot of people are looking at this with interest, because the main part of this case is that people are hurting personal reputations by presenting false information about real individuals. So this is the main questions the FTC has asked, is like to generate statements about real individuals that are false, misleading, or disparaging. So really interesting to see what happens here, if there's any water held to this claim that because it's a generative model and because sometimes it's going to be say statements that are not necessarily true, though is that criminal, and it's going to be interesting to see what the result of this case are. But those are just some updates. Seems like we got some more people in here. I'm not going to slow it down just to try and get some more stragglers. So I appreciate all of you guys that hopped in. We have some pretty cool updates from the playground to the launch of the Knowledge Hub, which I'm really excited about to show you guys, because it's kind of, I don't know how many, some of you guys have been here in these calls for 9 months plus since we've been doing this, and all this research kind of started off from research in AI for governance, and we've made some really cool stuff with the playground, and I'm excited to show that off. A little teaser of the audio, but there's also been a lot of work behind the scenes from Steve and the rest of our team, to try and put together this Knowledge Hub and AI that could actually really support governance. And so I'm really excited to show off kind of where we're at with that, because it's been a long road to get here, and I'm really proud of what we've made so far, and think that it can solve a real problem. But before I get to that, just some updates from the playground here. So playground, you guys should all be familiar with this, the create images page. There's been a lot of work that's gone into the edit images page as well. We've been talking with the community pretty much constantly, and heard you guys that we've added new features, but also to make sure that we haven't taken any away. So we've kind of aligned on some of the most important ones here with the edit outlines or depth. As you guys are familiar, the edit outlines is going to take just the hard outlines of the image, and you can create derivative content from it directly that will have like a very shared likeness with the original image. Versus when you look at it with depth, instead of using these hard outlines, it's going to try and understand like a depth map of the image, and it's going to let it be a little bit more creative with what it's going to actually generate. And editing image with prompts, you can actually tell it what you want, and it will be able to try and make something along those lines. Also getting a little bit more creative, as you can see here, trying to make it into an oil painting style. So that's edit image and create image. And the reason why these are pretty important now is because video is back and live. So this is really cool, because all you got to do to make a video is you create a new project, you upload some kind of audio track, and all you have to do to like make a full video is just click and add any images that you have saved. But what's also sick is that you can upload any image from your computer to have it then immediately get added to your timeline here. So anything that you've uploaded, even if it's like a photorealistic image, you can drop in. But not only that, you can do that with videos as well. So these were some of the, like I was using this to generate the trailer that I put for audio on Twitter, and you can see that it was just one pretty much long uploaded video and some images at the end. And so what that ends up looking like is you can create content that's a mix between AI generated content and real life generated content super easily with like just 5 clicks. So one quick example here is being able to go directly to this clip of a seagull from a robot, and then back into AI space to find your second seagull before going into a bear. Obviously, this is not showing everything that it's capable of. We've been focusing a lot on the tool, but you can expect last competition using the tool with kind of sponsorship behind it to see what people can really make with this, because the capabilities are lend themselves to a lot of pretty creative stuff, especially around audio visual interactions. One of our community members made this that I think is a pretty good showcase of leaning into the weirdness, but with like a core theme that you can see right in the middle. I know some of you guys are familiar with the like OPEPN community. They've been using the tool to create a lot of derivative content, and we're actually leaning into that a lot right now. Honk will give a few updates around some of the efforts behind trying to connect directly with minting and a potential partnership with Zora. And I'll turn it over to Honk in just a second to talk a little bit more about that. But wanted to talk about audio really quick, because audio, I think, is one of the most fun tools that I've had messing around with here. What you can do is you can create any song based on a prompt. So and you can also start with an audio file. So saying I wanted to upload an audio file, I could right here, and you'll be able to start with this as the driving melody, or you can create a prompt from scratch and then have it make, I don't know, whatever you want. And as it is going to take a sec to generate, I generated a couple here before, and you can see that the content definitely not too bad. And I really like this interface. I really like this interface because it shows that it's not going to generate something perfect out of the box, and actually really encourages kind of like a back and forth workflow with the artist. So instead of kind of assuming that any of these are our final product, one of the things that we're going to add this week as well is the extension of audio. So if any of these are 10-second clips or something you're interested in, you'll be able to extend it. And just with extension and splitting of audio, you've got something like really, really, really powerful. So this is the generation. Splitting audio is, I'm not sure how many of you guys are familiar, but splitting audio or stemming audio is when you can break down a single track into its kind of components. So we've got drums, we've got bass line, we've got melody, and we've got vocals. What's cool about this is none of these actually generate vocals. And so the vocal tracks just end up binning a lot of the noise. So you can get really high quality samples and just clips in general using this really simple but powerful tooling. So you've got producing of content, you've got the splitting of content. And so using this as an example, as soon as this last one gets made, I'll show you the splitting, but I guess listening to the Irish jig music. That was my first test with this guy.
Yo, this is fun, bro.
Yeah, right? Like it's pretty cool to mess around with. And the splitting, the splitting, I think, with producing prompts, splitting, and extension, I think you got a lot of options with where you can go with this tool. So this will take about 30 seconds or a little bit less. And so again, this is the example clip. And as soon as it's done splitting, you'll see the 4 tracks that we were talking about, where it's got each of the different pieces of it, and you can use any of those to kind of create a driving melody. So if you wanted to, if you liked the melody of a song, but you wanted to instead have it, be a jazz song, you could do that as well. Here's the audio split I was talking about. So you can get the drums. You've got your bass line. And the melody here. Like I said, it's kind of cool because vocals just kind of absorbs all the trash. So you can, it almost uses it as a way to kind of clean your track. And say I liked the drum line, but instead of it being this prompt, I wanted to take this drum line and have it be like video game theme music. I can do that too. So you can upload your own tracks to it and have you can just start messing with them, or you can just start exploring using these prompts and splitting. And we're going to add extension to be able to create longer tracks as you like it. So I'm pretty proud of what the team's been able to put together with this. I haven't seen any interface like this, and I think the results coming out are pretty great. And so we're really leaning into kind of like the weirdness and like the combination between audio and visual, because in terms of quality of like the visual output, we definitely see stuff that is better than what we're making, but we're focusing more on speed, fun, and kind of uniqueness, which seems to be some of the tools that the people who have been using our app have really been asking for. And we've seen over 5,000 people using the app and like hundreds using it every day. So we're building tools for those people that are really seeing some use here. Last thing, I guess, I'm going to turn it over to Honk. Honk, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the potential minting integrations and our thoughts around like leaning into kind of derivative collections, seeing as we're seeing a lot of use there?
Certainly. Thank you for that overview. So I don't know. We've already mentioned the OPEPN thing. That community really took to Nouns AI in a very big way and generated an immense amount of derivative content, which people really dug, especially regarding ControlNet, because the whole idea here is to maintain a certain like idea or theme and then have your own riff of it. And so we played back and forth with the community on that quite a bit. And since then, there have been a number of other sort of derivative pieces related and collections, etc., that have come of that. And Zora approached us wanting to do something with minting. We've been wanting to do minting for a while at this point, but there were other things that were cool in terms of audio, video, etc. So I'm going to actually be giving a demo to Zora because they reached out wanting to actually get something going, with the general idea being that they'll be able to have some links on their site that whenever you click them, it'll deep link you into Nouns AI to edit an image with one of three pre-existing templates. One will be Noggles, one will be OPEPN, one will be the Zora Zorb. And then you'll be able to generate derivative works and mint them from Nouns AI directly to an open 1155 collection on Zora, which is curated by a representative from each of those communities. And then there will be a fee split between the curator, Nouns AI, Zora, as well as the so there's the curator, Nouns AI, Zora, and the creator themselves. So everybody there is incentivized to work nicely together. So that's something that they think is very exciting, especially with all the derivative stuff from OPEPN, and they want to see it happen with other communities. So that's kind of what's going on now.
Awesome. Thanks, Honk. Yeah. So it's an effort in trying to replicate, a bit what happened with the OPEPN community here, where it's we could see how incentives could be really aligned for creators of collections to allow through a partnership with Zora to allow users to create essentially derivative collections live with our tool, mint directly, and have it all be connected and allow revenue share to go back to the community. Felt very Nounish to us. And something we really wanted to lean into. Honk's been putting a lot of work into it. The team's been putting a lot of work into these updates. Like I said, some of these tools I haven't seen anywhere else. The ability to combine video and images in 2 seconds with the audio to back it. You can make pretty quality content really fast. Saw a question about the license. So it's interesting. So Facebook released this model, AudioCraft, and they MIT licensed all the code in the repo. So to run it, it's all MIT licensed, which is like a permissive license. They trained on 20,000 hours of licensed music. So they licensed it and they released their model. And their model that they released is for, they technically released the weights. So that specific model under CC by NC. So this is it's a Creative Commons, so anybody can use it. But it has non-commercial use specifically for the model. Now, for the content created, especially if you're using it as samples, like my understanding is, even copyrighted content has been used as samples. If you're changing them up, significantly. And what's really cool about this is that you can change this stuff up significantly. Like we were talking about how you can take this. So I took that drum loop from before that we were talking about that came from a prompt of like a Beautiful Soul record, and asked to make some video game theme music from it. Probably should have been a little bit more specific with the prompt. That's yeah, should have been a little bit more specific with the prompt there. But you can use a lot of this driving melody to create like versions of a song. So, Mario theme song here, if you wanted to produce a derivative version of it and just have it be, I don't know, smooth jazz or something, you can do that. And so this kind of allows for an infinite variation of the types of songs that you're getting, or tracks that you're getting. And this splitting audio, like when you're splitting it, the stuff that you're creating here is all from an open source model as well. So long answer to say that I'm not totally sure. My understanding is that everything is open here. And I think that that's the understanding that a lot of people are operating in, especially because they license the music to create it and release the model. But they're, the real answer, and Prof, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's going to be a court case in the States that decides it, to be honest. Like as of now, I believe that it's, open source until, somebody sues them and some judge somewhere who's been sitting for, 30 years decides that it's not, or that it is. We saw a big, there are big cases going on right now. Go ahead.
You're right on track there. I think it's right now it would be treated like the way sampling is treated. So if the sample is open source or CCO or whatever, then or fair use, or small enough sample where it's fair use, it's fine. But this is going to take a couple of years to figure out. It's going to go through courts. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff. So right now it's kind of unknown. So just tread lightly. But I do think you're probably right there that it is it's going to be free to use.
Awesome. Thanks, Prop. So, and so here's the derivative of the. So a little bit better. Cool that you can just get a jazz version. So you can definitely hear.
It's interesting, even those derivatives, right? Like how, if I did sample that jazz version of that Mario song, like how would they even, it's going to be pretty unique to, like the sound is going to be very unique to the prompt. So like, how would they even know that I sampled it? Like if I used the straight up audio and was like, hey, I'm going to license this to HBO, like maybe, but if I sample it and like put drums over it and add another instrument or whatever, right? Like how, I don't even understand how they would be able to find out that I use this.
They wouldn't. And also, well, and so actually what's funny is that that Adobe pushing...
You've entered into a moral dilemma.
Yeah, right, Josh? Like it's a crazy ass question, but I'm like,
but that's like a lot of sampling and music stuff. Like and to be fair, I think many in the industry are of the idea of like, well, if I can get away with it, I'll do it.
Right. Yeah.
There's also and so that's the thing is like this was licensed, legally, and so like you're not taking, it's a different approach than like the Stable Diffusion, right? Stable Diffusion just scraped everything on the internet to create like this image generation model, and then you can do that, right? Like they paid for licensing of specific audio to create a model on top of it, so slightly different, definitely. And man, I'm trying to find this.
Yeah, it does seem like, I think that's a really important point. That because of that initial license, it's probably a lot safer than something that's just being generated through, OpenAI or whatever. So yeah, I agree with that point. But again, for now, because we don't know how things are going to come down. So,
Yeah.
but I do think that this one seems pretty legit and pretty safe to use, and especially because really what it comes down to is, when you change it that much, you also have fair use coming into play. So there is already like fair use doctrine around derivative art. So, and that's been challenged a little bit recently, but it still holds, in this case, like with what you just did, I wouldn't see any issue with that at all.
Awesome. Yeah, there's actually a really interesting case going on right now in Congress with Adobe. So related to the image generation models that we were talking about, and I'm trying to find the word, the name of their thing, but I can't quite find it here. So, and I'm not going to take everyone's time looking for it. But quick summary is that Adobe was like, Adobe pretty much said like, hey, not cool that Stable Diffusion just took everyone's art, and it's letting you generate from it. We have a ton of licensed art. And we're introducing this, we're asking Congress to pass this ability where anything that's AI generated needs to have this like sticker alongside of it, saying essentially like where it was generated from and the data that it was generated on top of. And so they're essentially saying like, everybody else's image generation models are going to be bad because, they're trained on not licensed stuff. Ours is trained on licensed stuff, and you should make it a law that everyone has to do that. So everyone's going to have different takes on that. Interesting to see them pushing that direction. Makes sense from Adobe's point of view. Don't know what's going to happen, for Congress like handling that. But yeah, like I mean, in terms of like sampling, as far as sampling goes, like this is a pretty safe thing to sample, and especially like because you can get, you can split the different tracks. And as you split each of these tracks, you can recombine them, with not even all of them, and you're significantly changing the work. So it definitely should fall under like fair use, at least until we see a case. All right.
Not financial advice, not legal advice.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for the
100%. Thank you. Definitely.
Cool. All right. So that is the playground. A lot of you guys have seen a lot of that over time. Now I'm going to talk about the wiki and the knowledge hub. I'm really excited about this. And, like I said, my whole, time here at Nouns kind of started a bit over a year ago when, 4156 was tweeting about trying to find a way to get AI involved in governance. At first starting with the idea of trying to simulate a participant, but then, trying to kind of really find ways to improve governance. I think that there's, my background's in product management and art and AI ML, research, and trying to combine the two. The idea of a knowledge hub here is, can we use the strength of these large language models, which is taking unstructured information and adding structure to it and transforming it into more useful formats, to create a tool that only helps both our builders as well as people trying to manage the whole organization? So you guys have seen Rocco the bot, hopefully, around various discords. It's in now these 7 different discords, and in each of them provides daily, weekly, monthly summaries of any chat that is having more than 25 messages in it. We're fighting some updates there to make sure that they come out all the time for all of our servers. So not 100% perfect each time, but really cool that they exist. And you can see these on this page here in summaries. I think this is an awesome way to get an understanding of what's going on in Nouns right now. So, if you're a builder, keep your heads down. If you're someone who's not synced up, yeah, sweet. Looks like we got the weekly updates here. But you can see that every channel from the past, from any of those 7 servers that had more than 25 messages, has a summary here. So as we all know, I'm sure, the fork has been, quite a bit of conversation, and we can see, the conversation that happened this week, the discussion of the possible consequences, people talking about potential penalization, importance of the fork mechanism for decentralization, um, and talking about the potential impact of buying an alien CryptoPunk. Cool. So if you missed out on the fork, you can always on the fork discussion for the week, you can get a little update here, and then go in and click all the way into. You can go find your way to the conversation if you want to engage into it further. We see some updates from NARS, some updates from Nouns AI, updates from Little Nouns. We got Builder down here as well, like with updates all across the ecosystem. So that's one thing that it does. It also answers questions automatically. So any question that has ever been asked and answered across any of these servers. So as we saw kind of at the front, we've got on the homepage, we've got almost 12,000 questions that have been answered, and 3,000 that are unanswered. And if you have any questions related to the Noun Square, you can type it in and see anything. It's like, do you have the Noun Square logo without a background, like a PNG? If you type this in chat in general right now, Rocco would automatically, without you needing to ask write a command, knowing that it exists, give you the same answer that exists here, which is, yeah, there's a file right here you can find in this Google Drive folder. If you have questions related to, BuilderDAO, right? Like anything related to here, what is BuilderDAO? You can get, these questions of these answers of where it was asked. And if somebody ever asks that in any channel, in any server that Rocco's in, it's automatically going to give you that answer. And our goal is to get you connected to the original person who answered that question, so you can actually connect the community automatically. So those are kind of some of the things that hopefully are helping builders without them even knowing about it, because you can get context, share context, and do all that stuff automatically. This is kind of the bird's eye view of what's going on in the organization. I shared kind of a screenshot of the unique chat participants in each one. I think it's kind of cool to see growth across each, and kind of that's a way of giving activity. We haven't spent a ton of time on these visualizations. I think it's kind of cool to think about the questions asked and answered and questions asked and unanswered, because you can imagine a bubble chart of questions that are asked and kind of like topics, and all that jazz. Being able to actually, while this one's going to take a while to load, so I'm just going to pull this up because it's going to be relevant.
Is this data available for people to play with, Dune dashboards? Can people come in here and just make their own visualizations and pick and choose what they want to pull?
Yeah, so about that, right? This is the high level view, and everything is driven on top by this wiki. So we didn't want to reinvent the wheel here, and it took us a while to actually get to this point. We tried a bunch of different things, but wiki, in my view, Wikipedia and Wikidata, and using wiki-based systems, they've proven to be some of the best ways to have decentralized knowledge sharing across the internet, period. And Wikipedia has been one of, if not the most important, sources of truth across the internet, and show really the power of decentralization and what's possible with it. And so we're building on top of that open stack. So everything that you see in this wiki can be queried with the wiki-based query service. So anyone who wants to make visualizations, anyone who wants to make updates of, I know Jack Wilds was mentioning about finding updates about different proposals and being able to kind of customize that, right? Everything I'm going to show you on these wiki, which powers all this stuff, can be pulled, trustlessly from anybody who wants, you're using the query language. So yeah, all this stuff can be built on top of it, and it's composable. It's not all locked into a single platform. Our whole goal here is to allow to create something that's composable and that can be shared across the whole organization. So what's in this wiki? We talked about the questions and answers and the summaries, right? And why that's important for existing proposals. But what's cool is, and big shout out to Maddie here. Maddie spent a lot of time kind of writing these associations, which for now are manual, but can be automated in part. It can associate proposals with where they're discussing it, right? So right now we only have Discord working, but we give updates, right? On these voice calls bi-weekly basis, right? So voice is a big one that we want to push into next. If we're able to continue working on this, like podcasts, YouTube videos, like those are all things that you'd be able to create an association with, so that if you just wanted to make, have a YouTube channel be the updates for your, for your proposal, you can pull questions, you can pull summaries, you can pull all that stuff from that content, and it would all be linked to your prop. And where does that go? Into the wiki. So using this as an example, this wiki has all of these props and is working and is almost ready to be totally automated. So it's going to be working, without us needing to make these, manual additions. But you can see here, like, so I'll use one of the more, the recent ones and kind of show you what happens as you get updated. So as a new proposal comes down the line, we use large language models to automatically break it down into some descriptions about it. So you've got the proposer, the quorum votes, if there's a team name that they provide or not. Doesn't seem like we got one here. They've got labels, so some are definitely longer than others, and there's a quick summary here. It tells you what kind of proposal types it is with some automatically created tags, and how much ETH it's asking for. So this is kind of what it would look like if a new proposal comes down the line. But as it gets added to over time, so using our proposal as an example, right? You can see everyone who supported, everyone who voted against it, and proposal, like what they said about it. What's cool is that you can go in here and everybody has their own page. So, if you've voted, proposed, or engaged on Nouns at all, everything is in here. So all the things, all the props that you've supported or against, if you have any vote reasons, right? Like all of this stuff exists. So it's all added in here. So you can, see your own page and remind yourself of the things that you've done in the past. So this is all in here, but everybody's of what they voted and why is in here. The supporter count, the opposer count, and everything. But then we keep going down, and because we have that association and we have these related channels, right? We have our full server, and then we also have the conversation that happened in the jungle and Nouns DAO. We've got all of these questions and answers that have ever been asked about. Is there a new Nouns AI Discord? Yeah. All of this stuff can automatically be updated to this wiki. So I think for the first time, you can automatically get updates of your prop and what's happening all back to one place without the builders having to actually do anything once they've created that association. But not only the questions and answers, but the summaries, right? So you can see how if we have weekly summaries of the things that were talked about on May 9th and May 16th, May 23rd, right? And we have these monthly summaries from June and from May and July, right? Like that these can start to automatically build like a Nouns canon of what's going on here. And you can always click in to these channels to go find, a link to actual channel URL to go join the conversation. So all of this stuff is starting to be automated. And so we don't need to ask builders to spend a lot of time going to go update people. What we're looking for, and ideally, as in order to keep building on this, our proposal ends in a couple weeks. I'm really proud of what the team has accomplished over these past 6 months. Everything that we put in our proposal got accomplished, and a whole lot more, in my opinion. It takes a whole lot to ship a production app, let alone 2 production apps in 6 months with the team of really 3 people who are working on it pretty much full time. I got other responsibilities, but everyone's been putting a lot of work in to get it to this point. And I'm really proud of what we've got here. But in terms of future expansion of what you'd be able to do with this is, we would ideally, I've been doing a really bad job of marketing everything that we're doing, and understand seeing that it's very difficult to both focus on managing our team and the growing our team. We have some contract workers that have been awesome. We're working on each of these different projects, but product management of all of our teams, as well as sharing it all externally and getting people onboarded, is definitely a lot. So we're ideally looking forward to putting up another proposal where we can reduce the compensation of our core contributors in order to bring on people that will really help continue to develop this without us kind of being the only people carrying the load. And so what that looks like, to me, is somebody who would, and this is still open, right? But one of the biggest additions, I think, to me would be someone who's really great at creating relationships within the community, has spent a lot of time onboarding people, works well with, new people coming into the organization, because I could see us proactively reaching out to any new proposal that gets passed, and just being like, hey, where are you going to have your conversation, right? Is it on a Discord channel? If so, let's just easy one-click drop Rocco in there. If it's going to be on calls, right, like, or a podcast, we can connect to your RSS feed. There's a couple, different adapters that we're going to have to build, but you can see how having, if we work proactively to get people onboarded and then market what we're doing, because anybody can build on top of kind of like the data coming in, that we can show a whole bunch of stuff. And like, that's something I'm really excited about. But it's not only just, obviously Nouns is the main focus here, right? And we want to create something awesome for it. But we've had other DAOs already reaching out. Like, we've had, like Gitcoin. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Gitcoin, but Gitcoin is an awesome DAO doing a whole lot of work trying to get people to contribute to bounties to help open source projects. They're really interested about getting something like this implemented. So like that person that we're talking about of trying to, onboard new users could also help us with business development, trying to find a couple really great partner organizations to prove out that we could do this at essentially an enterprise scale, building for ecosystems and organizations that you really only can build this kind of tool for right now. And those are organizations that benefit from having all their data shared, right? Like, we have a big leg up over people building this in the private sector, because we don't need to worry. Obviously, we need to worry about data privacy. Data privacy is a really big issue, but it's really beneficial for us that Nouns thrives off of letting people, and other DAOs thrive over having other people have access to all our organizations. And with that said, there's protections, right? Like, if you don't want Rocco to get updates on a channel, all you got to do, make sure his role doesn't have access to that channel. We wanted to make it as easy as possible to not have to worry about that stuff. So you definitely still have privacy if there are private channels that you don't want Rocco to see. I had talked with Elad, and he definitely mentioned wanting to make sure that his workspace, he doesn't have to think about people looking over his shoulder, and that we totally understand. And so that's where, like, but presumably if you're getting a proposal passed with Nouns, there's somewhere some kind of source of content that you want other people to be updated on. And whatever that is, we'll be able to work with you to get it added as an association, so that your proposal that gets initially created automatically, when it gets passed in, can just be updated over time. And anybody can pull that data using this query language. Okay, that's my spiel. I'm really excited about what we made. Yeah.
That's amazing. I do have a question for you. In terms of the going back to the wiki, or sort of that underlying knowledge base, is there a way to edit what's there? Like, if we see an answer for, and I haven't looked yet, but if we see an answer that's incorrect about Builder DAO or something, and we wanted to correct it, is there a way we can directly correct it, or we have to go through you? How do we do that? Yeah. So right now, and we're keeping track of edits, so no one go crazy. But right now, anybody can come in and write edits. The way that we ideally like to do it is, sorry, some background noise potentially. The way that I kind of envision this working is, it's either people who hold the tokens, if it's just Nouners, or it's also like builders and delegates and things like that. Depending on how the organization wants to do it. But we could potentially just have it be like, for now, we can just have anybody edit to it and just keep track of the edits to make sure that no one's going kind of off the rails there. But yeah, that's kind of the point, is that anybody can edit it, right? So, and like, we always want to, when a question is asked and answered, we always want to be able to pull back to an original piece here. And I think, let me see, because we have, yeah, okay, cool. Each of these questions, right, like the questions and answers, they pull back originally from a prompt, right? And this prompt is the question that somebody asked. So like, what do you want to know more about my non-computer project, right? And then you get direct replies, right? So you have people replying to it, and you have people, and then you have like a thread, right? And you also have other messages in the conversation. So we always want you to be able to pull back directly to where this question and answer came from,
And if you think that it got to the wrong answer, you can go ahead and update it here, or like updating it directly in the wiki. Now making sure that all of these changes are reflected everywhere and that everything's updated. We haven't totally gotten that 100% buttoned up, so I'm not going to say that everything's working totally right now. We were just pushing really hard to kind of get to a proof of concept to show that this is possible, because I think this is pretty important. But long answer short, like, yes, you can edit directly in the wiki, and you can update the source of the knowledge and like where it came from and see exactly where it came from, so that there's never just like a black box AI that has given the answer. It's just like everything traces back to people having conversations, and you can go join that conversation and meet real people, and I see it as a way to kind of connect the organization.
I really love that, and I think this is a huge unlock for a lot of communities. And if you're a community manager, it's like huge help to, once we get this really really working well, to be able to have somebody there, like somebody being Rocco, to answer questions 24/7 when you can't be. Obviously, I have to sleep sometime, is really helpful. So I can't stress enough, this is a super helpful tool that can be implemented way beyond the Nouns ecosystem. And I think it's a huge value proposition. And also, all the different things you're doing, I feel like this is one of our strongest areas of proliferation that kind of gets overlooked sometimes, because it's so subtle, and it's not, I don't know, it's not as out there. But when people see it, they see how cool it is, and it's a great story to tell. So I don't think Nounish has done anything with you guys yet, have they?
So
we're working profile.
So we're working with Byhardy and the Noun Square, Tody and Jack, and we're working together to try and make a video to kind of highlight everything we've built to date, because I know it's a lot to expect people to want to come to these meetings. They're not at times that work for everybody, but we're trying to make a video that kind of showcases everything that we've done. So yeah, love where your head's at. Love where your head's at.
And also, yeah, and I think Nounish doing something too would be helpful as well. So maybe reach out to Goldie in that team too, because I just think that this is such a great story to tell, and it really helps to proliferate what Nouns is doing, beyond but that people may not even realize, and when they see it, they're just like, wow, this is cool.
So we have reached out to Nounish. I have not really heard back. I know it pretty much heard back saying that they're figuring out their roadmap, and don't think that we necessarily made the cut. But maybe that's an ask for people here. If you guys do what we've built here, I'm trying to get a hold of the Nounders. You're proving a little bit more difficult than in the past to get a handle of. I know we've got fork stuff. I'm very, very excited about the Noun Square video, Tody. Don't get me wrong. But if you guys are into this, sharing it with some people, so that especially because we're gonna have a recording of this video that Tody's gonna share afterwards. It would be really appreciated. Young Flo, seeing a question in the chat, and I definitely want to answer this question because I think it's kind of important. So you ask, the question is, how is Rocco the bot keeping the context of all the information from nouns in his head? Is it via embeddings like a vector database, or how does that work? So I actually personally think that people that are going down the vector database route are a little bit misguided. So for context, what is a vector database? Right now, the way that people have been typically building a lot of these chatbot solutions is they're taking a whole bunch of information, turning it into vectors, which just means turning it into numbers that a machine can understand, and that have kind of relational, have some information about the context within it. So, for example, if a sentence this is the development version of Nouns AI knowledge graph, this sentence, the vector version of it would be very close to this is a development version of the Nouns DAO knowledge graph, right? It'd be very similar, and the numbers would show that they're very similar. So if you ask a question, then the large language model looks in its vector database and sees if there's anything similar and pulls it out. What's not great about that is that though it can hallucinate a ton, or not a ton, but it hallucinates not infrequently. The way that we went about this is I'm really focused on making sure that if you're getting an answer from us or you're, messing with something that we built, is that it's only a value add. Like I think that having a wrong answer, even if it's one time out of 90 times, is going to provide a lot more issues, and people are going to have a lot less trust to your system than if you focus on only answering questions correctly. And so the way that we're doing it is, instead of having a vector database where we're trying to pull from everything, though we have that, and we're going to open that up through a command because we've seen ways to kind of mitigate a lot of the hallucination. The way that we're thinking about it is, those 12,000 questions that we were talking about. We are just looking to see if your question matches one of those exactly. So if you have a question that matches, not exactly, but pretty much matches a question that a human has personally answered before, and we're just then it's going to be able to get you that answer. And so that's why we're using the large language model and making sure that we're tracing back to that original source, because that is what we think is really important, is making sure that it's not just a black box spitting out an answer, but instead it's like an answer that a real person has given. And what's cool is we can juice these numbers, right? Like large language models can also take conversations or take summaries and things that have happened and pull real questions and answers from it. And so that we can increase this to be like not only questions that people have asked, but it could also be questions that people may ask. And so then that way we just contribute to this set of true question answers that we have, and then make sure that we're just pulling from it. So hopefully that answered your question, but also you gave me a little bit of time to rant around why I think that that's important, and why I think that what we're building is more unique than just dumping into a vector database. All right. This meeting went a little bit longer than most. Question for you. So, a question or, ask for you guys, I guess. Our thought right now is, and this is subject to change, is our goal right now with the playground. A lot of people have been asking us about open sourcing the playground and like the tool. It is really hard for us to compete with a lot of like the other image generation and content creation tools that are coming out there. So Hog's pushing really hard right now on the minting integration, and seeing if there's a way to bring revenue in from that. If there's a way to bring in revenue, this is definitely subject to change. And so we're expecting this to kind of have an answer around the playground in the next few weeks, as we create like that partnership and have a last competition. But the idea here is we're packaging everything up with plans to open source, so that if people want to continue to build on top of it, we can have like a ticker here of we'll pay for servers from the leftover funds that we have to go past our proposal, and support people for that period of time. And then if people really are liking use it, asking for donations, not for us to like be paid to keep working on it, but just to keep the servers live. Like we're happy to like kind of like be shepherds of it into the open source. That's kind of how we're thinking of it right now. But then focusing our kind of full like dev efforts, and like I said, subject to change based on that, but focusing our full dev efforts on this wiki. Like I said, reducing comp for our core contributors to bring on more people to help out, and expand past Discord to be able to have the voice calls and podcasts we were talking about, maybe YouTube channels, potentially even Twitter, though that's now like a paid service like for their API, and it's expensive, and they're changing a ton of that. We mentioned like potentially bringing on someone to proactively work with any team who gets a prop pass to onboard them, improve the user experience, making sure that it's easier for those community managers, as well as giving value to the builders even further. And like I said, potentially expanding to other DAOs. That's our thoughts. If you guys have thoughts about it, please send me a message. I would love to talk with anybody who has any ideas around it. We're trying to do as much due diligence as we can over the next few weeks to make sure that it aligns with as many people in the community as possible. It's something I didn't do as great of a job in at the beginning of January when I passed this last one, but already having to start like really great conversations with people within the community that like have given us really great feedback, from builders like Elad to the Little Nouns community and how they're going to run it. I also have to run in a minute, so if you have those thoughts, please send me a DM or just hop into our server, which I'll send one last time into the channel here. But thank you guys for joining this penultimate Nouns AI bi-weekly meeting. We'll be back here in 2 weeks, August 1st, to kick off our last one, hopefully with some more updates. But I really appreciate you guys coming out.